Welcome back to another deep dive. You're here, I imagine, because you really want to get a solid handle on complex stuff fast, especially when it comes to STEM education and, well, all these new technologies popping up like immersive virtual reality or IVR.
That's right.
And you actually sent us this really interesting systematic review. It's called Confounded or Controlled, a systematic review of media comparison studies involving immersive virtual reality for STEM education.
What like a title?
It is. So look, your mission today, basically, is to figure out if all the buzz around IVR in science and tech education,
Mhm.
if it's actually built on, solid ground, like really well-controlled research.
Or if maybe something else is going on.
Exactly. Or if other factors are muddying the waters. So we're here to help you unpack it. This review, just for context, it covers studies from 2013 to 2022.
Okay, so a decent time frame.
Yeah, 38 different articles, papers, dissertations,
Yeah.
leading to 50 specific comparisons between IVR and more traditional ways of learning. Let's jump in.
Absolutely. And the core problem this review really gets into is whether these studies, the ones comparing IVR to, say, lectures or textbooks,
Mm-hmm.
are they really just comparing the technology, or are they accidentally, mixing in differences in how things are taught or what's being taught?
That's the confounded part of the title.
Exactly. That's the key term, confounded. It basically means, well, imagine you see students learn more using IVR. You want to say, the IVR did it.
Right.
But what if the IVR group also got, like, way more hands-on practice or instant feedback and the other group didn't?
Okay. So you can be sure if it was the VR or the extra practice.
Precisely. It's like testing a new fertilizer on a plant, but you also give that plant more sunlight. Was it the fertilizer or the sun? You don't know for sure.
Got it.
So the researchers found that many studies hyping up VR might actually have just tested better teaching using VR. It makes it super hard to tell if the VR itself is the special ingredient.
Okay, so why does getting this right really matter? I mean, it sounds a bit academic, maybe.
Well, it's actually really practical. There's this long history in education with new technologies, right? And think about, I don't know, motion pictures back in the day, or radio, educational TV.
Oh, yeah, the next big thing that was going to revolutionize everything.
Exactly. There's always this wave of excitement, and it brings up this classic debate in educational technology. There was Richard Clark, who famously argued, basically, that media are just delivery trucks.
Delivery trucks.
Yeah, like they just deliver the instructional content. He argued it's the method of teaching the instructional design, the activities that causes learning, not the truck itself, whether it's a computer screen or a book.
So the medium doesn't matter, it's the message, or rather the teaching method.
That was his strong stance. Now, others argue that, well, maybe it's more complicated, that different media have unique features, affordances, they call them.
Right, things they make possible.
Yes, unique capabilities. And these might interact with teaching methods in ways that really can enhance learning. So it's not just the method, not just the medium, but how they work together.
Okay, so there's a debate there.
There is. And this review isn't trying to definitively settle that old debate. Its goal is much more focused. It's asking, is the current research on IVR even designed well enough to give us reliable data, whichever side of that debate you're on?
Right, so it's about the quality of the evidence we have now.
Precisely. And they zeroed in on the degree of control in these studies. How well did they keep things consistent between the IVR group and the traditional group?
Okay, so what specifically were they looking for? What counts as control here?
Good question. They defined 5 key criteria. Let me see. First, participatory activities. Did both groups have similar chances to, like, actively do things during the lesson?
Okay, hands-on stuff.
Yeah, or interaction.
Yeah.
Second, non-IVR activities. Was there anything else they did outside the main VR or traditional lesson that was different? Like extra homework, maybe?
Right, extra resources or something.
Third, practice with the dependent measure. That just means, did they get equal practice on the specific thing being tested at the end?
Practicing the test itself.
Kind of, yeah. Or the skills needed for it. Fourth, time. Simply, did both groups spend about the same amount of time learning the material?
Seems obvious, but maybe tricky to ensure.
It can be. And fifth, and this is a big one, content. Was the actual information being taught identical in both conditions?
Okay, those 5 things. Activities, other activities, practice, time, and content. Seems like basics for a fair comparison.
You'd think so.
Yeah.
But here's the kicker. When they applied those 5 criteria to the 50 comparisons they reviewed,
Yeah.
only 26%, about a quarter, were found to be fully controlled across all 5.
Wait, only a quarter? So 3/4 had issues.
At least one potential issue, yeah. And maybe more concerning, a full 40% had at least one definite confound, a clear difference in instructional method or content, not just the VR.
Wow, 40%. So in almost half these cases, we really can't say for sure that the VR itself was responsible for any observed learning gains. That's
Mm.
that's pretty significant.
It really is. It suggests a lot of the research might be less conclusive than it seems.
Okay, so can you give us some concrete examples? What did these confounds actually look like in the studies they reviewed, like the activity differences?
Sure. The activity one is pretty common. They mentioned one study, McCransky and colleagues from 2019. In that one, the IVR group got voiceover help. They did hands-on tasks in the virtual world. They answered multiple choice questions, got detailed feedback. Pretty interactive.
Okay, sounds engaging.
Meanwhile, the comparison group, they just read a 14-page safety manual.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's not comparing apples to apples, is it?
Not really. If IVR group learned more, was it the immersive VR or just the fact they were actively doing things instead of passively reading?
Right. The study design basically bundled an active learning approach with the VR.
Exactly. And the review was careful to say, look, if the interaction is unique to VR, like manipulating a 3D model in a way you just can't do otherwise, that's not a confound. That's potentially an affordance of the medium. But the issue is when they use general good teaching practices like asking questions, giving feedback, active tasks only in the IVR group, when those could theoretically be applied in the non-VR setting, too.
I see the distinction.
They also mentioned another one, Dunnigan et al., 2020. The traditional group did a lab in pairs. The IVR group worked alone but had a virtual teaching assistant giving personalized guidance. Again, different social structure, different support.
Different learning experience entirely, not just the display.
Right. And one more, Lamb et al. 2018, they were learning about DNA. The IVR group had this mastery learning thing. They had to get each part right before moving on. They got immediate feedback.
Okay.
The hands-on group doing a physical model didn't have that same mastery requirement or the same kind of instant feedback loop.
Okay, those examples make it really clear how tricky this can be. What about the other control criteria, like practice or time? Did they find problems there too?
They did. Take practice on the test format, the dependent measure. In 12% of the comparisons, the IVR group simply got more practice specifically related to the final assessment than the traditional group did.
Well, that's a direct advantage, isn't it? Nothing to do with VR's immersion.
Pretty much. Then there's time. For 14% of comparisons, the reviewers concluded time spent learning was likely not controlled, meaning one group probably spent noticeably more or less time on task.
Which could definitely affect outcomes.
For sure. And maybe the most fundamental issue they flagged was the lack of clear descriptions, what they called operational definitions.
You mean not explaining what the groups actually did?
Exactly. In 22% of the studies, the description of the IVR condition itself was incomplete. And it was even worse for the conventional condition. 30% lacked a full description.
30%. So in almost a third of cases, they couldn't even be sure what the traditional learning involved.
Yeah. If you don't know exactly what happened in both groups, how can you possibly assess if they were well controlled? You're kind of guessing.
It sounds like the reviewers had to do a fair bit of detective work or just flag things as unclear.
It seems that way.
So with all these potential confounds and lack of clarity, what did this mean for the actual results? Did IVR groups learn more or?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? The overall picture was mixed. In 24% of the comparisons, IVR did show a statistically significant advantage.
Okay, about a quarter.
But in a much larger chunk, 54%, there was no significant difference found between IVR and traditional methods.
Over half showed no difference.
Right, and only a tiny 2% actually found the conventional method was better. But here's the crucial link back to the control issue.
Yeah.
The review pointed out that those cases where IVR did look better, they often happened in the studies that had those potential confounds or the ones where there just wasn't enough information provided to judge the level of control.
Ah, so the positive results for IVR are potentially linked to the weaker study designs.
That seems to be the implication. It makes it really hard to say definitively that the IVR itself, the immersive medium, was the reason for the win. It might have been the confounding factors.
And you mentioned earlier that a lot of studies were just difficult to determine in terms of control.
Yes, that was another major finding. Using one analysis approach, they classified a huge 54% of the studies as having insufficient information to even determine the degree of control.
More than half. That's not just a methods problem, that's a reporting problem, isn't it?
Absolutely. If researchers aren't clearly and fully describing their methods, what the IVR group did, what the control group did, how they ensured equivalence, then the whole field suffers. You can't replicate it, you can't properly evaluate it, you can't build on it reliably.
Okay, so pulling this all together, what are the main recommendations coming out of this review? What should researchers do differently? And, maybe more importantly for our listener, what does this mean for how they should think about IVR in education?
Okay, 3 key recommendations from the review. First, and it feels obvious now but clearly needs saying, researchers have to provide really clear, detailed descriptions, those operational definitions of both conditions. What exactly did the IVR group experience? What exactly did the conventional group experience? Every detail matters.
So other people can actually understand the comparison.
Exactly. Second, the design of the studies needs way more care to truly isolate the effect of the medium. You've got to actively think about and control all those other variables: activities, practice time, content, feedback strategies. The only intended difference should be the IVR versus the non-IVR delivery.
Isolate the variable, standard science stuff.
Pretty much. And third, they put some onus on journal editors. They need to push for this methodological rigor and demand thorough reporting when they're deciding what research gets published. Raise the bar.
Right. Gatekeepers for quality. And how does this translate for our listener who sent this in, trying to understand IVR's role?
Well, understanding these issues gives you, the listener, a critical toolkit. When you see a news report or an article raving about how IVR boosted test scores,
Yeah.
you now know to ask, okay, wait, how was that study designed? Did they really just compare the VR tech? Or did the VR group also get more engaging activities or more practice or more time? Was the content identical?
So look past the headline claim.
Exactly. Ask, did the researchers provide enough detail for me to even judge if it was a fair comparison? This review suggests that often the answer might be no, or it's unclear.
It empowers you to be a more critical consumer of this research.
Definitely. It helps you see that while the potential of IVR is exciting, the current evidence base might not be as solid as the hype suggests. We need better research to be sure.
Okay, so let's try to sum this up. The big picture is, IVR seems promising for STEM, no doubt. But this deep dive into the confounded or controlled review shows that, well, a lot of the research comparing it to traditional methods has methodological issues.
Right. Often, factors like teaching strategies, activities, or even content get mixed up, confounded with the technology itself.
Making it really hard to know if learning gains are truly because of the unique aspects of VR.
Exactly. And a disturbingly large number of studies don't even give us enough information to figure out how well controlled they were in the first place.
So the takeaway isn't that IVR doesn't work, but rather that much of the current research doesn't provide strong, clear proof why it might work, or even if it works better than well-designed traditional instruction.
That captures it well. The potential is there, but the rigorous evidence needs to catch up. Better studies, better reporting.
So a final thought for you, our listener, to chew on. We've heard how often teaching methods got tangled up with the technology in these studies. So what do you think is the biggest hurdle we face in truly isolating and understanding the unique impact that immersive virtual reality by itself might have on learning?
Good question to ponder.
Indeed. Thanks for diving deep with us today. Hopefully this gives you a clearer lens for evaluating the buzz around IVR and other educational technologies.